Tanner, my guy, how are you, sir?
Great. Thank you for having me, man.
Thank you for
it's good
coming.
to be hanging.
I'm really pumped to have you in here. So first off, funny thing, okay? And of course, you're the proprietor of
Free State Gym.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
Free State Gym down
Eagle.
on Hill and 55.
You got it. That's the spot.
Hell. That's terrible. I said hell. Hill and 55. Listen, this is hilarious. So, I haven't been to the doctor for like a normal thing since like 2018, 2019. I had a pro fight in 2019 and I had like something going on. I had like a fight in like a month or something. And my finger really, like I had this, you know, when you get like a cuticle infection, but then it doesn't go away. I was like, ow, man, like it really hurts. So I go into the doctor and he's this old Russian guy. He's like, are you on any medication? I was like, no, doctor, I'm not. He's like, we can fix that. He's like tapping on his computer. And he's like, blood pressure seems fine. And then he goes into this thing about salt, right? He's like, decrease salt. It's better with blood pressure. And I was like, this is what I'm like, listening to this guy. I was like, come on. Then he does his blood panel on me. Now, mind you, I'm 180 pounds at the time, 180 pounds, 6'2". I could run a marathon, drop of a hat.
I would imagine pretty cardiovascularly and metabolically fit.
Like peak performance, right? And so he does this panel and I was like, yeah, it was like, I don't drink, I don't smoke, like I eat well, all these things. I was like, I mean, a high cholesterol runs in my family. He's like, oh God, gets this, does his blood panel. And he just sends me this canned email because my cholesterol was high. And he's like, with proper diet and medication, you can drop this. I was like, it's like, I don't know. And that was essentially my last touch point with the medical community. Then cut to me, you and I getting together, and I've known several people that have worked with you to essentially regain their life, right? Regain their physical body, get back in touch with the life that they want to be living. And they're like, oh yeah, Tanner's a big fan of drinking salt water in the morning. I was like, what? They're like, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Just like a tablespoon of salt, mix it up, slam it down, great for your gut. And here I'm thinking back to like the Russian doctor of 2009, cut the salt, and you just
Totally.
So talk to me, because you obviously have made a life out of helping people get back in touch with their physical bodies, get back in control of their meat wagon. And a lot of those things, I think, are flying in the face of the dying traditional Western medicine vision of health, right? Starting kind of in the 50s and 60s and 70s, better life through chemistry, better life through pills, better life through, solving with, quote, science, instead of, hey man, like, what can we do without, you getting on antidepressants, antipsychotics, without getting on, Ozempic to lose weight, without doing all of these things? What could we do to work with you to help you have a better life? Talk to me about this.
So, I mean, that's really what my passion's been is really two things. A, reconnecting people with physical culture, and then helping people get their life back, get their energy back, get their fitness, get their ability to do the things that they really enjoy, which is connected to the physical culture part, with the people that they love the most. And, those things kind of come together. I have this theory that all of us have an 11-year-old inside of us that absolutely loves to like move and play and be physical. And, whether that's wrestling on the floor with your kids or skiing, hiking, playing tennis, wake surfing, whatever it is. I have just seen time and time again, people come alive when they're moving and when they're, in that flow state. And that is something that people get very disconnected to as they get older, because we get into, maybe post high school and, you're in class in college, if you go to college or you go to a job, and either way, now you're going to spend the next, handful of decades of your life sitting down probably, unless you're in some type of like, labor or something like that, you're, going to be sitting a lot. And people get further and further from that. And then pretty soon they realize that, well, actually, I can't do these things now. And then there's a, sense of despair. There's also, hey, like I have kids and family and I can't do the things that I want to do with them because I'm not physically capable of doing it or I'm not confident. And that's a sad place to be. Someone who's a father of two children and, I want to be able to share the things that I love with them. I want to be able to move around. I want to be able to do it with my grandkids. And if I'm, really fortunate, maybe even my great grandkids.
Even with, yes to everything you're saying. And I think back across my life when I've been like conscious, right? It's like pre-15, I don't really remember that much. It's like just running around like a monkey. But as I look back on adults I've known, considering with compassion how much pain they were in emotionally because of their physical world. I have a family member who's, it's my understanding the story goes he's older than I am, and I didn't really know him, but he ended his life because he had back pain, like horrible back pain. And I have another friend who, she's older, but I knew her when she was, in her 60s, horribly debilitated from physical pain and the mental toll that takes on people. So it's not just like I've imagined sometimes like, hey man, what if I got in like a car accident? What if I was like in a wheelchair? Would I still be a happy person? Or am I just happy because I'm like running around just being an idiot, right? Like my 11-year-old self is not so much on the inside as much on the outside. And I'd like to think like, oh no, I'm like a positive guy. I could be high spirited, but man, how much of my attitude is because I can move, because of my physical ability, because I'm not, riddled with pain all day long. How much of it plays into that? And so many people I've known that have come into bad physical states without a way to get out of it, that end up on medication, either self-medicating through alcohol and other things, or or like proper prescription medication, right? And we all know what's happened across the country with that. What of those people, right? What of their mental state and their ability to even, engage with loved ones?
Yeah. I think anyone who feels like they're not able to embody a version of themselves that they're proud of, or that, that they want to be, that weighs on you. Physical pain, the emotional pain, the, feelings of, probably regret, missing out, all those things. Right. Personally, I had a knee injury that was pretty bad when I was in my early 20s. The injury itself and, kind of a poor recovery from it. This was before I was doing what I'm doing now. Led to me being in like chronic pain to the point where like, even like sitting on the toilet or walking downstairs was incredibly painful for me. And I got to a point where, first it was like, well, I'll never be able to run again. I'll never be able to play basketball, things I enjoy again. That was hard enough. Then, I also have children and I'm like, well, now I'm not going to be able to share the things that I most enjoy. Meanwhile, I'm also like a new owner of a gym where I'm like leading this thing and I'm in like constant pain all the time. So there's this like existential crisis of, how horrible this is and how young this is happening to me and all these things. And, you feel a lot of different emotions. It's fear, anger, all these negative things. And, It changed the way that I approach, my own physical practice, fitness. It's definitely makes you stronger mentally. And there's things that we could talk about around that. But I can appreciate where someone is when they're they're feeling fragile, unfit, unhealthy. And it leads to a negative mind space that's like a vicious cycle that then, kind of magnifies itself.
That I was telling you right before we got going. Before 2020, I was an absolute tank. I would work out to absolute failure on my own. It was part of who I was. It was part of my life. It's part of everything I did. I planned my days around this just absolutely atrocious beating of Matt. And it was, God bless every second of it.
You loved it though, huh?
Dude, I miss that part of me a lot. And I'm hopeful that one day I can get it back. Probably not going to be the same, because what happened is when 2020 hit, I was 37, and then I go through this horrific 2-year period where, I lose so much of everything, all of that. Then I'm 39. Then I move here. I don't have a community the same way I had there. I don't have a system around me that I can engage in those things. And, poor life decisions and whatnot led to me essentially losing that entire next year. Right. So now I'm 3 years removed.
Get out of structure.
Yeah. Horrible. Right. And earlier this year, in right the end of the first quarter, I realized after I got through the legislative session interview series, right? It was like 90 Days of Hell. I'm like, dude, what have I become? Like, what has happened? Like, I gotta get after. Like, what have I become essentially? So I'm like, I'm gonna go for a run. Mind you, I used to do distance running. Like, love running. Like, I have this fantasy of one day just running from sundown to sunup. Like, run straight through the night and like watch the stars as I'm running and like see the sunrise. Like, I don't know why it's so relevant to me, but anyway, so I'm like, I'm just going to go for a run. And I run literally from where I was living to the stoplight and back. And it's like a mile both ways. I didn't even make it to the stoplight. Literally my hip, I was like, is my hip broken? Am I going to have to wave down a car? Like, what's happening? My feet hurt. Like, all of a sudden my calf hurts. Like, everything hurts and hurts bad. Doesn't hurt like, oh, you can push through this. Hurts like, oh my God, it's not working. Like, my leg is no longer working. Mm-hmm. And I had lost all of this capacity. And what was worse is that was the first time in my life, and I'm sure you deal with these people all the time. That was the first time in my life when I started questioning, like, oh, can I get myself out of this hole? Like, I think I'm too far gone.
Is this the end? Or, yeah, absolutely. Well, there's hope. And one of the things that I most enjoy doing is giving people that confidence back, but, also giving them the truth, which is like, hey, you're going to have to be patient and you're going to have to commit to a process. And this isn't going to be something that happens overnight. You didn't get deconditioned overnight. Right. It was a period of, in your case, it sounds like, a handful of years, a few years. Well, think about someone who's, 20 years in. It's like, all right, well, a month of working out is not going to change this problem. You're going to have to invest a lot of time in it. Now, here's the good news. The body is incredibly resilient and it bounces back much more quickly than it gets deconditioned, but it still requires patience, commitment to a process, and being very incremental. And one of the things that you're describing that I think becomes a big blocking factor for people is that the last time they were in shape is, some years. Maybe it's, when they were 18 years old and they were still on the basketball team in high school. Maybe it was 10 years ago before they had kids and they were in like a really good, whatever it is. Even if you said it was 5 years, that's a long time. Okay. So the last time that they were in shape is actually not even the context they're in now. So their idea of what they should be able to do, how to get back in shape, and what they're capable of is completely out of context. You can't compare yourself at 45 with 25 years of sitting down, not training, not moving your body, not maybe eating right, and then compare that to the 25-year-old version of you and think that there's much data or knowledge or wisdom that you can pull from that, how you did it, And then there's also the fact that a lot of the things that you can get away with training and nutrition wise when you're young don't fly anymore as you get a little bit older. And it's not even because we age as fast as we've been taught. It's because of how our life changes when we get older. For example, when I was, let's call it 14, 15, 16 years old, I was always moving. I was riding my bike somewhere. Right. I was playing with my buddies in the cul-de-sac. I was playing sports. I was just always in motion, and sitting was actually a more rare thing for me. All right. The, 35-year-old version of you probably flip-flops that, you are way more sedentary. There's that. Then there's also the fact that how we are able to move, how fit we are, all these things are also connected to our overall load of like stress. So when we're teenagers or in our 20s, we have no stress relative to that of, having kids, a mortgage, a job, people that rely on you, all these things that you're doing, these expectations that you have to meet and everything.
Let me ask, did you have a girlfriend in high school?
I did.
Yeah, dude. I remember breaking up with a girlfriend, and it was like the world.
Seemed like that was a big deal.
And now it's like we have big deals. Like now,
now you have a big,
Now it's like, I have a business, or now we have real things happening. It's like you handle it, it's cool, and then you see the 16-year-old break up with a girlfriend, and life is ending.
Dude. When I was in high school, like, by the time I was a junior, I had like a teacher service or off period. And at our school, we were allowed to go home. So I would like set it up where like my off period was after lunch. So lunch bell would hit. I would go home, eat, take like an hour nap, go back, finish my last class, go to the locker room, maybe take another 30-minute nap before basketball practice, go to basketball practice, be in bed, sleep, a completely relaxed, 9 hours and everything.
You don't know how hard my life is, Mom.
Yeah,
you don't understand.
And look, I wasn't like that. I definitely appreciated that. Like I had it pretty good, but there's just, we have so much more burden of stress. So like, it's not that I think that I'll come back to this. Like I've seen people make some incredible turnarounds from pretty rough spots, not just physically, structurally, but like metabolically. Yeah. And people in their 40s, 50s, beyond, all of a sudden completely turn things around. So I have this like incredible optimism about the human body and what it's capable of, and more specifically the human mind, because that's a big part of it too. When people flip the switch and they're like, I am going to do this, this is going to happen, that's a big part of it too. But we're incredibly resilient. But you have to come into context where you have to be honest about the fact with yourself that like, hey, I'm not in a position where I sleep 9 hours a day plus a nap, plus I don't have, I got kid stress, work stress, like you have to honor that. So you have to, when you're engaging in getting back into a fitness routine as, a middle-aged person, whatever you want to call it, 35 to 65, whatever you want it to be, you have to also honor the recovery side of it and start looking at things more holistically, because it's not going to work by just like, oh, I'm going to start exercising and I'm not going to change anything else. Or I'm going to start exercising the way I did when I was 21 years old in college, when me and my buddies would do bodybuilding routines and then we would, sleep 9 hours a night plus a nap plus, so.
It's like that first car you get in high school. You get like a Toyota Corolla, or I don't know what kind of car you get. I didn't have a car in high school, but you get a car, right? No matter what the car is, you're doing burnouts, you're blown, it's like the whole bit, right? Take that car from 17 and drive it until you're 50. And then try to do the same thing with that car. Now the car's like 25 years old. You're just happy it turns on. No. It's the same thing. You're like, I used to be able to do burnouts with this thing. It's like, great, try it once. You're gonna blow the entire clutch. Like it's gone.
Let's refine that metaphor a little bit. It would be like driving it for another 25 years where you're not so good about rotating the tires and changing, changing the fluids and keeping up with the regular maintenance. Yeah. So, and then people they get dejected. They get down. They're like, they have that experience like you have where they try to go for that run, which was something that in their mind seemed very simple that, the old them used to be able to do. And now it hurts. And they're like, dude, like, I'm a mess, I don't even want to do this, and then they give up and then they go into, these other places where now they're using distractions, they're using, whatever kind of distractions people use, whether it be, devices, alcohol, sure. Whatever the things are. And then now they're further from that. And they're also numbed from, that voice in their head that's like, you really should get it together, and,
we also, if I may add in, we're also hypercritical of adults when we know what's better when we're like 20, right? And like I remember when I had this one gal, she was a client of mine. I worked with her son, and she did like these crazy. She was an incredible athlete, and I remember talking to her. I was in my 20s. Okay, I remember talking to her about how she really enjoyed going on walks. Now, mind you, this is like triathlon, like Ironman level woman, right? Mm-hmm. And she would go on walks, and she was like, walks are great. I'm like, I don't have time for a walk. Like, are you kidding? And so now you're like, oh, there's a place for that. Like, there's a place for that emotionally. There's a place for that mentally. There's a place for that, physically. Like, I see you walking all the time with, packs on, just getting sun, getting moving. It's not necessarily that you're, like 150 heart rate, like doing but you're moving, and that has a place in our lives now. Whereas if you met like a 16-year-old who's like, man, I really like going for a walk.
Yeah.
It's like, 16-year-olds, like, I can barely tolerate it at 43. Me at 16 is like, if I'm not going 1,000,000 miles an hour, I can't. Like, this has no place in my life.
I'm glad you said that, because there's two things I draw from that. Number one is that, I think a big part of like maybe the anchor point in someone's, we'll call it the middle-aged fitness routine, is what I call like soul food. Something that you just enjoy. Whether it's, jujitsu, walks outside with your dog, hiking, skiing, whatever it is. Like, I think that the people that I see that maintain the highest levels of fitness have some kind of like soul food activity. That's a big anchor point for them. For me, I love being outside in the sun with my dog, and, just that like is good for me. It's something that I do for my body physically as well as for my mind and emotions and energy, but that's a big part. And for a lot of people, I think that can be an entry point, and there are a lot of different entry points, and we can talk about it, but that's one. Like, if someone's like, man, I really enjoy pickleball, whatever, like, that's a great starting point. Now, here's the thing. Depending on that entry point, if your body isn't conditioned to be able to do that thing, like, if you've been sitting on your butt for the last 20 years, I don't think pickup basketball is probably like a good place to start. That's an Achilles.
Blow out your Achilles.
That's an Achilles. Yeah. Everyone listening to this, don't start with pickup basketball. Okay. You got a lot of work to do on your ankles, feet, hips, and knees, connective tissue before you start that. The number one injury for middle-aged men is Achilles ruptures from playing pickup basketball. That's not to say that you can't get back to there. Right. I never thought I would play basketball again, dude. I can go play now. I got myself in, but there's like a progression to it. So soul food has a place. The other thing is, metabolically, just walking is actually really good for us. And so this is something that is one of the biggest myths, and we can cover a lot of different myths in health and fitness. Salt being bad for you, definitely a good one. Let's talk about that. But another one is that there's, within the fitness zeitgeist, there's all these different brands that have convinced everyone that the measure of a good workout is how many calories you burn in that workout. And so people look at where their heart rate's at, and they think like, okay, this is the value of this workout, is where my heart rate's at. What we actually know from a actual fitness standpoint is that you want to be on one side of the intensity spectrum or the other when you're training. If you're doing it for health and longevity and even for body composition, okay, all the things that everyone who's listening to this probably wants, okay, you want to be on one side of the intensity spectrum or the other. You want to spend as little time as possible to no time in the middle zone, which is exactly where most people spend almost all their time. If you're going to one of these places like Orange Theory or, these boot camps, essentially all it is nonstop movement. But because there's not rest periods, you can't actually go intense enough at the really high end to get the benefits of strength training or anaerobic conditioning training. And because they're just trying to keep you moving, because they've essentially built into your mind that like the more exhausted I am and the more calories I burn and my heart rate being in this particular place is where I want to be. You never actually slow down enough to get the benefits of the aerobic based training. Yeah. So you actually, what you want to do is polarize your training. You want to be lifting really heavy weight for relatively few reps when you're doing your strength training. Or if you're doing, high intensity conditioning work, you want it to be at like 99% of your ability level for a relatively short period of time. Okay, you either want to be doing that, or you just want to be like walking and doing something that is very low intensity for a prolonged period of time that's steady, just focusing on your breathing. All that stuff in the middle, actually doesn't have benefits. All that stuff does is release stress hormones into your system and actually inflame your body. So it feels like you're working hard, and maybe there's a certain fulfillment level there because you're like, dang, that was hard. That must have been good for me. All that's doing is beating your body up. You're not getting the benefits, the hormonal, the muscle building, the bone density, the anti-aging benefits of strength training or the super high intensity intervals, and you're not getting the benefits of the aerobic stuff. You're just in this middle zone, busting your ass, beating your body up, not getting the benefits. That's another thing that also makes people feel dejected and they give up on fitness because they go to these kind of workouts, they're kicking their own butt. They're doing the work. They're, setting their alarm. They're getting up early. They're doing all the hard work, and then they're not seeing the benefits, and they're actually feeling worse. And that's a gut punch. And then you kind of give up on it. So that's another thing.
Man, this is really embarrassing to admit, and I've mentioned it once or twice before, but my greatest anxieties in life and the things I feel worse about really stem from my time on the rowing team in college. And I have nightmares still once a week.
Sure.
I'm 18 again. And it was one of those experiences that was so deeply troubling to me, because what happened is the training that I now, in retrospect as an adult, I look back on the training, I'm like, oh, okay, So essentially what the rowing team is their structure for workout was we'd do 3 by 20 minutes or 4 by 20 minutes. And you'd have these bands where you would have to be going for 20 minutes, but you're going really, really hard, right? So you're not going short bursts. You're not doing short time frames, but you're also not getting into a groove for an hour or two, right? Mm-hmm. And I had these experiences where I wouldn't get better, or I'd actually start going backwards. I'm like, what the hell's going? And it's I go through my freshman year, the coaches just abuse the hell out of me, right?
Oh, totally.
Sophomore year, junior year, and going into my senior year, I was so frustrated because I had these glimpses of progress in my junior year. Over Christmas break, what I did is I just had these long, slow periods working out. It was crazy. And I was lifting. I was like, wow, I'm getting a lot better. Not doing the standard team training, right? Come back after Christmas break, my junior year, I'm a monster. I'm chewing through people. People are like, oh my God, this is crazy. And again, there were Olympians on the team. So the fact that I was in the top 8, top 16
you
guys
were doing something.
I was like, hell yeah, it's Matt's time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then within 5 weeks, I can barely make it through a workout. And the answer was always work harder, be tougher. So I'm working out
rather than work smarter. Yeah.
Yeah. So at this point, I'm working out 3 times a day, 2-3 times, killing myself. And junior year, and I go into junior year summer. So I got about 2 months. And I was like, so help me God, I'm going to figure this out. And my buddy had read one of Lance Armstrong's books when people liked Lance Armstrong. And his emphasis was hey, if it's hard, I stop doing it because I know I'm moving out of my aerobic zone. It's and now mind you, armed with that and nothing else, I devise a plan where I'm all right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do 90-minute pieces every morning. Hang on a sec, do this. Take them off and just put them back. Because when you push them back like this, you get peacock hair.
All right.
There you go.
I'm looking
okay out
now?
for you. You're looking great.
Appreciate
You're looking
you, man.
very choice. Anyway, so I spend the whole summer twice a day workouts. Monday, Wednesday, Friday I do long, crazy pieces every day. Just putting in the time, right? And then the afternoon, I would either do powerlifting, but hard and sports specific. So lunges,
deadlifts,
squats,
stuff like that.
thing.
Yeah, for rowing.
Or that was Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then Tuesday, Thursday, I would do 45 minutes of med ball, hard. So my core was just an absolute tank, right? I could hang from bars, pick up a 20-pound med ball, launch it across the floor with my feet. My core was rock solid. I came back at the end of that summer so strong. I was not only one of the top on the team, but the coach actually changed the training regimen. But he was like, "Oh, we should just add in weights." Todd did a bunch of weights.
Yeah, it wasn't we're gonna actually wind down some of this other stuff.
So all they did was add in weights on top of the 3 and 4 by 20. I came in literally one of the strongest in the team. By week 5, I couldn't keep a warm-up pace
Oh, totally, man.
for the workout. And the answer was always like, oh, you just have to work harder.
No, man. So the sign. Oh, man.
It's so painful. Like
high level endurance athletes do, and this is actually something that was tracked with I want to say it was the Dutch speed skating team. I'm almost positive it was the Dutch. It was one of these European countries that like speed skating is like a really big deal. It was either the Norwegian team or the Dutch team. I want to say it was the Dutch though. Anyway, whatever, it doesn't matter. And they were watching as part of, looking at their training and everything, like how much time they spent in different zones and everything. And keep in mind, a lot of these, events are like big time conditioning events and everything like that. They spent 80% of their training in a low aerobic zone, and only 20% of their training through the course of a 4-year Olympic cycle was done at or above race pace. Think about that. So professional
and really like almost nothing spent in the middle where you're just like, hey, bear down.
Nothing in the middle.
Time to get tough.
Nothing in the middle. Your favorite endurance athlete doesn't spend any time there because they understand that all it's doing is breaking their body down. Now you're using your glycolytic system. It's burning sugar. It's breaking down muscle. It's releasing stress hormones. It's inflaming your body. And if you do it day in and day out, you're not going to recover. So it creates a cumulative effect that's degenerative in nature, and you don't get the progress. But even worse is that you're doing the hard work. So what you see like actual endurance athletes do is they work at or above race pace for relatively short but super intense periods of time, super high end, or they're just going slow and they're working on their aerobic based recovery. They're refining their technique, whatever those mechanics are, whether it's rowing mechanics or running mechanics. That's what they're doing. And that is not what the general population is. That's not how they're consuming fitness. The general population is not going slow enough when they need to go slow, and they're not going hard enough when they need to go hard. They're just existing in the middle. Part of it is because the instruction they're getting is bad. And the sign of an unskilled coach or trainer is someone who just throws volume and suffering at a problem. That's the sign of the most unskilled coach. Anyone can make a workout hard. Okay, like we could both make up something hard right now. Burpees for 10 minutes straight, go. Like anyone can do that. That's like that's so that there's no reasoning and intention in any of that. It's just suffering. Okay, whatever.
And I mean, to be fair, that has a place when you're dealing with like, especially 18 to 20-year-old dudes, 18 to mid-20s. Like there is a place where it's like, hey, you need to become tougher. Like I believe in that. Because by the way, like my life after rowing, and I had some success in rowing, but my life after rowing, I was so damn tough. I was able to do anything. Like it literally freed me by essentially instilling willpower in me. Okay, great. Was it the best training for rowing? I would argue no, right? I was better at the first day of my senior year than I was at the last day of my senior year. That's because the training, like if you had left me alone for 10 months, I would have been a monster by the end of the 10 months. So there is value. Like sport has a lot of different values.
Sport has, and there are some sports that exist in that realm.
Right.
But if I came to see you today and you're like, Matt, we're going to make you tough, I'd be like, I'm getting the hell out of here.
Yeah. Like, I don't need that in my life.
Yeah. So like, all right, where do we want to go? Because I would argue that, and I see this all the time, is that the middle ground that we're talking about that's suffering is hard. It hurts, but to take it to the next level hurts more. And so people are kind of cool medium suffering or medium high suffering for 45 minutes more than they're comfortable like really hard suffering for like 2 minutes. Right. You know what I mean? So I would even argue that you can still get the mentally tough piece of things existing on either end of the spectrum here, Maybe a little bit of time in the middle every now and then for that piece, maybe, but let's also be smart about where we put it in so that we have nice recovery days on either end and we're not stacking that medium intensity. But yes, for the purpose of an athlete who's trying to win their event, like performance is probably more, because some of the people that are relying on mental toughness is because they don't have the skill or conditioning level. If you had to give me one or the other, I would rather be the most well-conditioned, freshest, skilled fighter than the mentally toughest one that goes into a fight broken.
Sure, and I think like we're talking about a spectrum,
but
of sport,
but that's
right?
a spectrum. Yeah. Now, if we're talking about general fitness for the 50-year-old mom or dad who's trying to get back in shape, right, there's not really a place for it. Yeah, especially there's definitely not a place in it for that person, because you have, at that point when you're unconditioned, you have the lowest capacities of recovery from everyone. Right. So like the, MMA guy that you love who is super high level conditioned, well, yeah, he can play in that middle ground a little bit because his capacities for recovery are so great. Sure. There's something that a mentor told me many years ago. This guy, Ian Campbell, he's like an Australian strength and conditioning coach. I think Campbell was his last name. Anyway, and he said something that made a big impression on me, and this is something that I think applies to everyone. It's not the workout that you can make yourself do that's beneficial. It's the workout that your body has the capacity to recover from that's beneficial. So you're a super tough-minded guy, but right now, by your own standards, you're saying that you're a little deconditioned.
Yeah.
If you came and went to the gym with me and we did, an hour workout, whatever it was, sure, I could take you through the gnarliest workout and you could make yourself do it just because you're tough-minded and you would rise to the challenge and all that. But if your body can't recover from it, that was actually degenerative and destructive in nature. So sometimes our mental toughness in, the GPP world, the general physical fitness world, can maybe work against us, because what we should do when we start is the workout that our body can actually recover from.
Right.
That's more helpful. And so starting and then being incremental is starting fairly simply, maybe even a little easier than you think you should do, and then being very incremental and consistent, getting frequent doses of the training. That's another thing. I would rather have you come and train with me 3 or 4 days a week on a 1 to 10 scale at like a 6 or 7 than come in 1 or 2 days a week at a 10 and then you're like destroyed for whatever days afterward. It's the frequency of the dose. Every dose of training is like releasing growth hormone and, all these sex hormones and stimulating thyroid function and all these things that are super beneficial. I want the most doses of that a week, rather than maybe like what we perceive as like one huge dose, even though that's not really how it works, because if you can't recover from it, then it's not beneficial. But it's really the frequency of it and the routine and consistency of it that's most helpful.
Yeah, there's as a younger person too, I think I gauged the success of workouts by how painful it was. It was like, oh my God, that hurts so bad. Oh my. And so when I, a couple months ago, when I started digging out of this hole and really realizing like, dude, I've been like in a coma for the last 4 or 5 years. Like what happened, right? Really taking stock of, okay, this is where I was, this is where I am. What do you need to do to get out of that? And again, I'm a humble guy. I start small. And again, to your point, I'm like, okay, look, I have a hard time running to the light and back. I got to get to the light and back. No problem. Right. Like I got to start doing these things, go slow. Don't worry about how long it takes, run on the grass, like do all these things. My body was like, we're not having this. I ended up, I'm telling you, I ended up getting tendonitis in both my ankles. I couldn't even walk. I was like, I've never had this pain in my feet. Like I can't even walk. I found my way to the rowing machine because I got a rowing machine. And it's this long, slow kind of humble, hey, look, let's not make it this process of pain and suffering. Like, what if I could just get on this machine? Because all I'm used to on that machine is pain and suffering. What if I can get on the machine and just clock in this comfortable, like, hey, 45 minutes, 50 minutes. I had to
focusing on your breathing.
I listened to some good podcasts. Yeah. Like, I actually
make it enjoyable, man.
I've never done this. Okay, so first off, that machine was the bane of my existence for decades, right? I had to go on a couple trips for, like, I went down to Utah, I went this other place. I found the sports center at the hotel I was staying at, and I'm jumping on the rowing machine. I was like, never in a million years would I have thought that, but it was the mind shift change of like, listen, why don't you just do this so to the point where you enjoy it and it feels good? Put in your 45 minutes, put in your 60 minutes. It's not a big deal, and then leave. So again, changing the paradigm by which I operated in improving physical fitness totally changed my view of like, okay, what's a good workout? Is a good workout the fact that you got to work out, that you got to sweat, that you felt good? Like, yeah. Or is it that like, oh my God, you hurt so much, right? Because that's the metric that we use, especially as younger people moving forward. Then you get to my age and it's like, well, it has to hurt or you're not improving. It's
yeah.
like,
And
oh,
when you're
God.
when you're a younger person, the only thing you have to get up for every day is that hard workout. You know, when you really think about it, like, you know, you don't have to get up for history class. You know what I mean? But, you know, now, like, you got to get up to be on to, you know, do your career, to, you know, when you're worn out and, you know, your kids are going through it and they don't really care that you came home worn out, you know, like, you got to kind of summon that, you know, internal reserve there, you know, and so, yeah, there's a lot more to get up for. And, you know, I will say this, I don't love running as a re-entry point to physical fitness for people. Man, it's like, it's high impact. And like, I'm assuming you were doing it on a hard surface. So that's a lot, you know, to go from not doing anything to high impact on a hard surface. Don't love that for anyone. I would start with, you know, something lower impact, walking. You always see me with the backpack. I like rucking because now I can do something where I can get my heart rate up. I can actually build some, you know, core and shoulder girdle and spinal and postural strength, but I'm not beating up my body to do it. You know, there's a certain functionality there that I like, but like lower impact stuff like rowing. Love rowing because there's also this natural rhythmic nature where you get into your breathing. Love that. You know, and honestly, the biggest bang for anyone's buck getting restarted again is strength training and like low impact aerobic training, which could be as simple as walking in the beginning, adding a backpack to it, rucking, or doing something low impact like rowing. Like if you just did those two things, like you will get really, really, really far before you have to complicate things from there. Now, when we're talking about strength training, though, we got to make sure that we mean the same thing. A lot of people equate strength training to lifting weights. The tool doesn't mean that you're building strength. So like if you're lifting a dumbbell for 25 reps, you're not building strength. That's a conditioning exercise. So if we're talking about strength, it means that you are lifting something that is so heavy that you really can't lift it more than about 6 or 8 times. You know, so like, you know, we kind of want to be in that 8 or less range, really. Now, there's reasons to lift at higher rep ranges when we're going through different phases of training or we're trying to do some different adaptations. But like, let's just say that like it needs to be something that is heavy. Yeah. You know, I want you to lift something that's so heavy that beyond about 6 to 8 reps, you couldn't lift it anymore. With good technique, obviously. Okay. That's strength training. So like I talk to people all the time and they tell me about their routine, or I'm going to this boot camp and like, oh yeah, we do strength training. I'm like, tell me about it. What do you guys do? Oh, well, you know, I did 25 overhead presses followed by, 50 rows followed by, it's like, what? Like, that's like crazy high rep ranges. You're not building any strength there. That's, that's that middle zone where you're not building strength. You're not really building muscle. You're just inflaming your body with a gigantic amount of volume. And it's not low intensity enough to get the metabolic benefits of aerobic training. So like when we talk about strength training, it needs to be something that's heavy relative to the individual. You know, what's heavy for me and someone else is going to be a little bit different. So What's heavy for you? It needs to also be big compound movements. It needs to use a lot of muscle. It needs to be like you're squatting, lunging, pressing, pulling, pull-ups, things like that. It needs to use a lot of musculature. Now, maybe you do a little accessory work that, makes sense, kind of like, adding in some kind of bodybuilding concepts and things like that. I think that there's, some benefit to that. But like, if we're really trying to keep it as simple as possible, it needs to be heavy stuff that stimulates a huge neuromuscular reaction. That's what's going to get you all the benefit. Then just do something low and slow. Go walk for 45 minutes. Go walk for an hour a day. You know, that's really where people should start.
God, man, it seems it's both so simple and, you know, complex in that it's so counterintuitive, right? Like when I was doing strength training, you know, you wouldn't call it strength training, but when I was lifting in college, you know, it was like we do 3x30 squats and lunges supersetted. And like, by the way, at the end, we were like smoked, we were tough, the whole thing. Like, and rowing is a unique sport in that you know, it's a 5.5 minute race. So you have to have real good muscular endurance, right?
Sure.
But it's so counterintuitive to like, no, man, just first off, take 6 weeks, get all your ligaments prepped for what's about to happen. Like start with movements, get your technique down, make sure everybody's right. Because one of the other problems that I've seen people do over the years is they're like, hey, I'm going to start lifting again. And then within 3 or 4 weeks, they're injured. They're like, they were just too antsy. They're like, I want to get going. I want to start improving. I want to start lifting. And it's like, dude, you got
hard to do that squat with just the barbell to get it right and to build up the connective tissue resilience. You know, it's hard to humble yourself and do something relatively simple when there's that guy or that, you know, girl in the gym next to you who's like, you know, kind of like much further along than you.
Sure.
But you know, it takes patience and commitment to kind of a process and really commitment to a lifestyle. You know, that's another thing is that one of the things that holds people back is, you know, in my observations is that they try to fit fitness in to what they think are going to be these just little convenient gaps in their life that are going to magically open up without them putting any intention or planning into it. That never happens. You have to take your new, you know, wellness practice that includes, you know, exercise, nutrition, recovery, whatever you're doing. And you actually have to put that at the center of your life and wrap everything else around it, because it's not going to conveniently happen between meetings that you have in the middle of the day. Like you got to take time for it. You got to plan for it. You got to carve it out. You got to set boundaries that I am not going to schedule something over that. So that's going to have to be the first thing that you schedule. You know, the paradox is that the person who's in like a really good routine, they actually can relax some of those boundaries because they're loving it so much and have so much momentum that they'll find a way to make it happen. It's the person who has no routine that actually needs to be like the most intentioned and planned out, you know? And for a lot of people, it's as simple as just like, dude, wake up an hour earlier or wake up 30 minutes earlier, get it in before your day gets going. You know, if you're trying to get into a routine and you think that like, oh, at the end of the day, I'm going to like, you know, knock this out. It's like, man, you're not. That call's going to run long. That email you didn't expect is going to happen.
And you might be able to do it, but you better be in love with it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like once you're in love with it, oh, you will make it happen. Yeah. You will get home when the day got away from you, and you will, you know, I only got 20 minutes before dinner. You will go do that 20-minute workout that you just figure it out. But if that's not where you're at yet, you know, here routine wise and here, it's never going to happen. You got to plan it out. You got to put it into the calendar. You got
to give it the best chance to germinate.
Exactly.
Best chance of success, man.
Exactly.
If you know that, like, and you know, I think we're all guilty of this, especially at times when I was doing workouts that I wasn't in love with, right? It's like, I'll get it in later. That makes a lot of sense at 10 a.m.
Yeah, totally.
When you're like, you're not tired. You're not experiencing the emotional and physical state that you're going to be at 9 o'clock. And then 9 o'clock rolls around and you think of your 10 a.m. self. You're like, screw that guy. He doesn't understand how tired I am.
That guy doesn't understand me. Yeah.
It was you 11 hours ago.
Yeah. You gotta, you really, you know, you have to know thyself.
Yeah.
You know, you have to know like, hey, this is how my life is. This is how my day often goes. Like, I'm going to have to be an early morning person. Look, I've been a gym owner now for, I mean, predating Free State, which is a relatively new iteration of things, for, you know, off and on for maybe like 14 years now. And so I've seen, you know, kind of the social experiment that is observing people and, you know, the kind of gym that we have where we're either doing personal training or small groups. And I can tell you the 6 a.m. people, the early morning people, like, man, those people progress. The type of person who commits to waking up early and getting into the gym, like, those people might hate it in the beginning, but boy, they get locked in, man. And that's not to say that people that train at other times don't see progress, but like there's something about someone who like is honest with themselves about the fact that like the only way I'm going to get this in is if I wake up earlier and knock this out before anything else happens. Because then the other thing that starts happening too, well, you start going to bed earlier. You start saying no to that glass of wine or whatever it is that's going to make waking up even harder. You know, you start, you know, look, like the whole concept of the first domino habit. If you wake up in the morning, and whether it's that you exercise first thing in the morning, or you just do something positive for yourself, for your nutrition in the morning, like the morning metabolic cocktail that you alluded to at the very beginning of our conversation that I'll go into. When you start doing things for your fitness and health really early in the morning, it creates this domino effect that carries on throughout the day. And then because you want to essentially like kind of like carve out the path for being able to do it the next day, your evening decisions start getting a lot better too. Right. You know,
something to your point that you made this and a couple minutes ago, it's almost like, look, whatever is at the center of your day, everything else will wrap around that, right? So if your life decisions are a function of you getting your workout in, like you're saying, your diet's going to be different, your sleep habits going to be different, your socialization's going to be different. That's everything. And that's putting your workout. So it's like, hey, look, my life decisions are a function of me getting my workout in. If you reverse it, which most people do, and their workout is a function of their life decisions, well, who's walking around doing like an Ironman diet just for fun? Who's walking around with running shoes on 24 hours a day? Like nobody's walking around workout ready just because, and they're like, oh, now I'll spin off a workout, right? Like it doesn't, you have to buy the shoes with the intention of working out. You have to not overeat at dinner because you know you're going to try to work out in 2 hours. You got to not drink. All of these things, your life decisions have to be a function of your workout, not the other way around. Because you're not going to just happen into fitness, into working out if you're just living your, bumbling on day.
And I've been doing this, working with people, coaching people for 17 years now. I have yet to see anyone who puts fitness and health at the center of their life that had to sacrifice something else that was truly valuable.
That was truly valuable.
Yes. Now, that's the big thing. Like you become a better father. You become more energetic and a better version of yourself at work. You become a better business owner. You become a better friend. You become a better parent, all the things. Now, maybe you don't have as much time for goofing off, drinking, playing video games, whatever it is, so maybe those things, shrink in your life. But I have yet to meet someone who, because they put fitness at the center of their life, was like, dude, I ran my business into the ground, or I
got divorced,
or I'm now estranged from my wife because I became a fitter, healthier, more energetic, clear-minded, happier, emotionally regulated version of myself. Have never seen it happen.
Right. My daughter won't talk to me anymore.
I have only seen it happen the other way. Only seen it happen the other way. And that's something that, people get attached to things. And one of the most powerful things about starting a fitness routine is the things that it makes you sever from, as hard as they may be. Those are the things that are most empowering to an individual. That bad habit that's eating up too much of your time, that's getting in the way of you working out, every morning, whatever it is, like that's the thing that when you actually like get on the other side of giving up to do something, that's the thing that actually is the wind beneath your wings, that really empowers the growth, because then you're like, man, I never thought I could give up that thing. Now I don't even want it anymore. And the thing that I've replaced it with is incredibly powerful, but it's actually where I'm embracing discomfort now and I'm loving it. And that's when like the shift starts to really happen. And so, you know, it's, go ahead.
When you talk about cutting things, when you talk about cutting out things like alcohol or goofing off or video games, how many people have you ever worked with that got on more medication when they got fit? Right?
None.
Like how many people?
Like, you know what I have had though? I've had many clients, countless clients who, when they went back to their doctor for that physical a year later or whatever it was, and their body fat was down, their blood pressure was down, their blood sugar numbers, you know, their fasting glucose, their insulin, their A1C, all their numbers were improving, their anxiety was improving, and they told them what they were doing, where the doctor was like incredulous. Like, that couldn't possibly be that beneficial. You know, wait, you mean to tell me that your trainer convinced you to stop taking your blood pressure medicine and to start eating more salt and to start doing these things and to eat more meat, and that all these things improved? I've had a lot of doctors be like, that can't possibly be it. I think you should still get back on your statins or on your whatever your thing is. I don't think, you know. And then the people are like, nah, dude, I feel incredible. Why would I do that? This is awesome. So
I feel, I so deeply feel that we have veered away from what's so common sense.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
And like, look, I'm middle-aged now, right? Like I'm 43 and
let's embrace it.
Just
I am for sure. Yeah.
Dad bod
Totally,
all the
man.
way. Right.
Yeah.
Like you know, what's so funny, when I was like 18, 19, we used to joke about, older dudes having man strength. It's like, I get the man strength now. Like I get that. I get to enter that phase of life. But you know, I've met a lot of people, friends and relatives, that I look at them and it's like, oh no, you let this one get past you and now you can't find your way out. You can't find your way out. And I've had moments of life, wide swaths, you know, from 2019, when I was I was supposed to fight Jake Shields at the beginning of 2020.
Wow.
Not in a MMA fight, but a jiu-jitsu fight. It was going to be like March 2020. Swear to God. I was like, this is going to be wild. We were going to do.
Turns out it was wild, just for a different reason.
Way wild.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I that was who I was in 2020 and 2020. And now looking at myself, I'm like, oh no, like I'm finding my way out of this, but so many people don't. And then just to see the pain and, you know, you and you have clients that are mutual friends of mine. And talking to them about the difference that they have experienced in their life, talking to them about the mental health, the physical health, the relationship health with their spouses and their children, their energy. It's like they're living a different life now. And we just need more of that as our generation ages. You know, like we saw what happened to the boomers, right? Like, but what about our generation as we get older? Are we going to be the ones that are like, people talk about it all the time now. Like you see 50-year-olds that have maintained themselves. You're like, damn, like that person's, I have a dear friend who's in his early 50s. This dude is so jacked. I don't know how it's possible. And he's a monster. It's like, wow, man, that's what we can be. That's what we can be for our kids. That's what we can be for the next generation. We can break the cycle of better life through pharmaceuticals. We can break the cycle of just leaning on doctors for more things. I'm not saying medicine does not have a place in the world, but like, come on, man. Like we can absolutely lead the charge for the next generation. You ever see that, like, it's like that black and white movie where it was like JFK's PE training regimen. They had like all the 17-year-olds like doing the rope.
Yeah, it was a high school in California.
Yeah, there you
go. It's anyone watching this, it's worth a check on YouTube. If you just type in JFK physical fitness program high school, you'll find it. It's incredible. It's incredible. Like they had these kids in this very structured physical fitness program where like PE was not just this afterthought at school, but this like very structured strength and conditioning program. And these kids are in this video, and this isn't like the elite of the elite. This is just some high school that they found, and they ran all the kids through it. You watch that video, and it looks like you would think this was like a Ninja Warrior trial. Yeah. Like the things these kids are doing is so impressive. And it was just that, you know, they had this emphasis on physical fitness. And look, the greatest impact, or the person who was a huge impact on my life, in this respect, was my dad. And it wasn't anything he ever forced on me. It was that my earliest memories were my dad doing pull-ups in the backyard, doing push-ups, doing sit-ups in the garage, running on the treadmill, running outside. Like, I just picked it up by osmosis. Like, I wanted to hang out with my dad when he got home from work or whatever. And that meant, like, watching him do pull-ups, sit-ups, push-ups in the garage. And, like, we'd be watching LSU basketball games on TV when Shaq was, I remember this very clearly, like, Shaq was at LSU. We're big LSU fans. We're watching the game. My dad's working out. Next thing you know, I'm like, well, dude, I want to get a couple sets of push-ups too, and then, but my dad, who was quite a bit older than all the other dads, like, when I was in elementary school, my dad was already in his late 50s, and he was far fitter than all the other dads. And, like, we lived in the South, so it's like 1,000 degrees in the summer. My dad, like, middle of the day is like going on like 10-mile runs, doing sit-ups and push-ups and hyperextensions afterward and everything. And people would always remark, they were like, man, your dad's like,
getting after it.
Yeah, like, your dad is insanely fit. And for me, it was like, well, that's cool, man. I think that seems like a good thing,
Yeah.
And
that's before TRT too. Your dad was getting after it.
Oh no, yeah,
your dad
for sure.
Was laying it down on the natch.
There was a interaction I had with my principal when I was in, like, second grade. So I got to a point where my dad would ask me to ride my bike while he went on his training runs. And so I was just trying to keep up with my dad, and he wasn't, like, slowing down. So it was kind of like, yo, you got to keep up if you're going to keep up. So one day I'm at school and we're in line. We're going past the office, and the principal's walking by, and she stops and points me out, and she's like, hey, I've seen you, with your dad every afternoon when I'm leaving. She's like, that's impressive. And I remember being like, the principal of the school just recognized me in front of all my classmates for, like, doing something that, like, I didn't realize was a big deal, but she seemed to think it was a big deal. And I thought that was pretty awesome. And I was, like, pretty proud of myself for that. And yeah. I say all that to say that people need to not just do it for themselves. They need to do it for the example that it sets for their kids and for others, like, be that example, because the other example is teaching them something that I don't think you would wish on your kids. You don't want your kids to suffer through being unhealthy, feeling fragile, being physically unfit. Well, where do they think they get that from?
Right.
Like, thank God for Arnold Schwarzenegger movies and my dad. Like, they don't make movies with, like, the Van Damme training montage anymore. So, unless we're, like, going back and watching those, like, videos with our kids, then, like,
all
dude,
day.
Are you kidding me? I watch it at least a couple times a year, man.
Oh man, you're getting my blood pressure.
Yeah.
I'm getting worked up.
I've actually gotten my wife into loving corny Van Damme movies. We watch it more like a comedy. She can't get enough of it. And what's great is my wife never grew up watching any of these movies. So, like, I'm getting to show her Van Damme for the first time, and I know everything that's about to happen. And I just know, like, the, like, incredibly ridiculous moment or line or whatever he does is about to happen. So I can watch someone see it for the first time, and she's just, like, laughing hysterically. But you got to rewind that. There's no way that he just said that. And I'm like, oh, so I'm like, oh, you haven't heard anything yet. Like, just wait,
God,
so yeah.
Tanner, listen, man. This is what I propose. The screensaver just came on. We've been going for an hour. Okay. I love every second of this. I would love it if you'd be willing to come back. Let's do this. I want to talk about the cocktails you drink in the morning. I want to talk about your micronutrient, protocols. Sure. I would love to hear those types of things. But let's do this. Let's just save that. Let's do another episode committed to those types of things that people can start getting after.
Yeah, we'll get into the practical stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Because again, I think, like I said before, like, we're not going to be able to hit everything in one conversation. And this is really important, right? Especially for, I very much believe, our generation of people moving forward. We need to start breaking, and the draw is there, right? Ozempic, like, let's lose weight better, like, all, like, the
magic pills are becoming ever more tempting.
The Viagra, the Ozempic, the this, the that. It's yeah, that's right. It's always going to be more and more and more tempting, this easier and easier button. And I don't think that's the way that we're going to show our kids how to live their best lives. It's like, just go to the doctor and get a pill for all of everything, right? Mm-hmm. So why don't we do that if you're game?
Let's put a pin in it. I'd be happy to go to part 2 of the conversation. Let's do it, man. Be happy to do it.
Sir. This is great. Tanner,
Too
thank
easy.
you for coming. We'll get another one lined up. We'll go from there.
My pleasure.
Thanks.